Welcome to the Sustainable Business Council Missoula Area's Sustainability Lecture Series. Tonight we are going to have Matt Heisel and Lauren Varney from Home Resource give us a presentation on Home Resource, the past, the present, and the future. I'll go ahead and turn it over to Matt and Lauren.
Alrighty. Thanks for coming, everyone. I'm really glad we did the introductions because it sounds like we've got a great crowd of people with lots of interesting input to hopefully the later part of this discussion. We're going to have a little brainstorming session, and I'm really interested in seeing what you guys have to say, so looking forward to that. This is Home Resource. Let's move on to the next slide and first say a little bit about what Home Resource actually is. We're a building materials reuse center. Basically that means we are a nonprofit. We collect and sell reusable building materials to reduce waste and help build healthy communities. It's our mission statement. We left it nice and broad. Building healthy communities opens up a lot of possibilities, and that's a lot of what we're going to talk about today. So the overview of what we're going to cover: the past, our philosophy and accomplishments, and then some of the things we're doing right now: materials in use, workshops, Willard School project, as Whitney mentioned, Jobs Through Recycling program that we just started this year. It's funded by a grant from the EPA, and some other recycling things that are happening. And then we're going to talk about our need for a future home. We're actually going to need to find a new space within the next year and a half to 2 years. And that's kind of what we want to focus on and think about tonight. And we want to consider the possibility of actually creating a whole sustainability center that would include other groups besides Home Resource. It might include a tool library. It might include Free Cycles, which is an organization that promotes sustainable transportation and teaches bicycle maintenance and other things like that. So we're going to have a little group discussion about that and try to generate some ideas, so be thinking as we move along here. Next slide. To back way up, Home Resource got started about 2 years ago. Lauren and I were kind of thinking along the same lines. I had been working at the Missoula Urban Demonstration Project, which is a sustainability education center, and we had received a lot of requests for people wanting to donate materials, secondhand windows and doors and all kinds of things, and occasionally people looking for that, and so it was clear that there was a need for this type of thing. At the same time, I was in graduate school and I was thinking about this other very deep philosophical question: is sustainable business possible in a finite planet when our economic system is based on infinite growth? That's a doozy. Everything you hear about the economy, how is the economy doing? Is it healthy? It's always based on growth. How many housing starts? How fast is it growing? We always want the fastest possible infinite growth. How far can this go on? Well, the planet is limited. So there are a couple of better minds than mine that have already been thinking about this for decades. And I'll just let you read these quotes. Sustainable growth is impossible. That pretty much sums it up. So that poses a lot of interesting challenges. Let's go to the next slide. Nonprofits that are trying to promote sustainability, well, a lot of them are dependent on grants and donors who make their money in an economic system that's inherently unsustainable. So what do we do about that? And then, you know, a lot of us are business owners here. We all want our businesses to grow on an individual level. I know that. Lauren and I both do. But can any business grow and still be called sustainable? So I don't have the answers to a lot of these questions, but They need to be brought up and they need to be thought about. And the only, at least temporary answer that I have is perhaps if the growth arises out of more efficient use of resources, we can continue to create jobs, generate more income, create a more vibrant and healthier economy, and remain within the limits of the resources of the planet. So these questions are driving the beginning of Home Resource and where we're going in the future as well. So let's go on. The vision of Home Resource is to build a nonprofit organization supported entirely by activities that improve the efficiency of the building industry. There has been an incredible amount of waste in the building industry, as many of us already know. Tons of materials thrown away every year. Just in Missoula, it's tons and tons. And so our goal is to try to keep as much of that out of the landfill as possible and turn that waste into cash, which will support jobs and job training and other kinds of sustainable activities. So let's keep going. The development of sustainable products, services, networks, and systems that may ultimately replace unsustainable ones. So that means reusable materials, thinking about the whole life cycle of a material, improving the reusability of roofing, metal roofing as opposed to shingles, and all kinds of other possibilities. This is going to be kind of a brief surface level overview here. We're offering more recycling services now. I'll talk about that in a second. This is sustainably harvested lumber. It is fir that, Lauren, can you say where it came from?
Yeah, Mark Vandermeer was mentioned earlier. I think he's having a workshop at his shop, but he has a mill just under the Scott Street Bridge as you're going over into the north side. And he, the idea of sustainably harvested timber is kind of a developing idea, and there's lots of different definitions, and it's kind of vague, but he believes that he's using methods that are good for the forest. He's doing a lot of replant and a lot of taking back roads and different things, replanting on roads and making those roads back into the way the hills used to look. In doing that, he's thinning a lot of stuff, thinning people's property for fire prevention, and in that he's acquired tons and tons of trees. And he's a forester who got his degree at the University of Montana. He's currently working on his PhD with the university, and so he's milling up these timbers that he gets doing this work. And so we've started buying them from him and seeing how that goes. So those are
now available at Home Resource. Yeah,
those are rough sawn 4x4s. There we have.
Right. Another thing that we've just started, it's part of the Jobs Through Recycling program, is siding shingles from scrap lumber. And just to list a few other possibilities that are happening, as we heard earlier, gypsum recycling is coming along. There's also something I've heard about recently, local bamboo. Bamboo is growing as a weed in certain parts of Montana and becoming a serious problem. It could be turned into a great building material. Just something to think about. Local currency, I want to mention. How many people are familiar with the concept of a local currency? Quite a few of us. Basically, it means an alternative monetary system that's used only locally, is available to be circulated within local businesses. And the idea is to promote local businesses, and by promoting local production, local farming, local use of resources and circulation of materials, and it grows the local economy, and it's also more sustainable. Less transportation involved, less supportive, big box stores and unsustainable production in other places. So it's more control over our local economy and local production. So I really want to talk, we'll talk more about that later. So some of our current goals. Undertake job training and educational programs that encourage more sustainable building techniques, reuse, and recycling. This is Dan. He's part of our Jobs Through Recycling program. This is in conjunction with Opportunity Resources Incorporated. They're another nonprofit organization that trains adults with disabilities, and they have a wood shop already, and we've become part of that basically. And what we're doing is taking scrap lumber from job sites, and we have bins, which you'll see in a little bit, where we can collect this stuff, bring it here, and we mill it into these shingles, which I'll actually go ahead and start passing around now. Start one over here. These are siding shingles, not to be confused with roofing shingles. Commonly used in gables of older homes, and we're milling them out of mostly pine and fir. They can be treated and painted for preservation, and we're going to see more of them in a little bit. So, let's keep going. Just to review some of the things that we've accomplished in our first year and a half, we developed a tracking system to track how much material we actually kept out of the landfill. Basically, it's a fairly simple, rough system. We went around and weighed and wrote down a random sample of all our materials, divided up by department, and we averaged the weight and the price of all these things. We came up with a dollar figure, a number that represents the number of pounds per dollar of sales in each department. And so then by multiplying all of our sales figures by that dollar per pound per dollar number, we came up with an estimate of how much material we've actually sold. So this is not just what's been donated. We don't weigh it as it comes in, but we weigh it when it's in the yard and then estimate it as it goes out how many pounds we've actually sold. And it comes to 381 tons thus far, which is not bad. It's, one truckload is, I had such a great image for this. 4 tons or something like that. We'll move on. Sorry. Sales projections, we were really pleased. We exceeded them by 40%. So it's just a reflection of the support of the community. It's been really overwhelming and a great, exciting thing to be a part of, because it's really taken off and it's booming, which is why we need a new space. So now to look at some of our materials in the yard versus how they actually come out when someone puts them to use. This is fir that was reclaimed from Lauren.
50-foot clear span arch trusses. And those are just some of the scissors through the trusses. There's 24-foot 3x8s underneath that are, it's all coastal fir. It came out of a mill in western Idaho, and then this gentleman bought it and made this amazing table out of it, or workbench.
Yeah. So this is excellent workmanship on this. Let's go to the next slide and get a little closer up picture of some of the drawers there. He did a really nice job, but you can see the quality of the wood that's under that sort of weathered appearance that you see in the yard. It's really high quality stuff. In many cases it's tighter grain and higher quality than you would get in a new board. So let's keep going. Just some ideas of things that you can do when something looks kind of questionable in the store. This is the way it gets donated, and it gets turned into something like this. The woman that did this was a really regular customer here, and she had a ceiling fan. This looked exactly like the ceiling fan that you just saw, and she repainted it and put what she calls mahogany magic. It's a combination paint and stain that she gets at Ace Hardware and put that on the blades, and it looks beautiful. So moving right along, these are some Spanish tiles that were donated, and the same woman actually is using them in a sort of, what do you call that pattern? I'm blanking. Herringbone pattern, sort of. And just combining them with some other tiles. A lot of times we get basically remnants, leftovers of tiles, and so there's not often enough to do an entire room, but with creative use you can come up with enough to do an interesting pattern. This is actually what she's using to put on this whole fireplace. And then this is sort of a transitional slide here. This light that she's got on the wall is actually a ceiling light. Here it is again on the wall. There it is in the store. It was kind of a ceiling light that looked kind of dated to me. I didn't have a particular vision for it, but she put it diagonally on the wall instead of on the ceiling, and suddenly it's unique and very interesting and kind of fun. So now we're to Lauren's house. We're tag teaming it here, so I'll let him sort of take over.
Well, I think every day somebody comes in and tells us about their project. Almost every customer tells us about their project that they're working on. But a lot of them, a lot of them sound real interesting, and I ask them to bring us a picture, or I imagine somehow going by and taking a picture. And so it doesn't happen very often, so you have to put up with my house. So I built a fence when I first moved in, because I have a big dog and kids, and so it just happened, and that's all 1x4 red cedar that was reclaimed out of power poles, and then the 1x10 is just some shiplap fir that a local salvage guy had, and those are, you can't really see the diagonal supports there for the doors, but that's twisted copper that is lightning rod from a barn in New York. So it's stuff that was probably made in the mid-1800s, and just is really, really green. And then I kind of goofed it up by putting those pretty galvanized turnbuckles in there, but I didn't have a real good choice. So there's my fence. There's my bathroom. That's a bidet that we got from Mountain Plumbing, a pedestal sink that I got at, well, not from Home Resource, but from a guy who is a regular there. He's a refinisher. His name's Dennis Struffel. He runs a company called Miracle Method, and he refinishes antique stuff, antique porcelain materials, clawfoot tubs, and things like that. So that's reclaimed cypress on the baseboard, and I haven't, as you see, haven't gotten to trimming out the rest of it. It's one of those 10-year projects. And then 12 by 24. Didn't know what to do with it. It's only like 3 feet long. So made it into a bench in the backyard. And then, so this is the big part of what nonprofits have to do, or what Home Resource wants to do, is help, like, take that vision to the next level. So not only do we have materials lying around that you can just come in and buy and build that chicken coop or remodel your basement or whatever, but we want to also help people wrap their minds around it in that next level, get their hands on it. So as a nonprofit, we have to do quite a bit of education, and this is what we did this year, is built a straw bale house. Well, a straw bale shed, I suppose, is probably a better term. In the middle of winter, we found out we had to get all our combustible paint out of the warehouse, and paint freezes. Paint then becomes no good. So we had to figure out a way to get it outside and not spend hundreds of dollars a month or more heating some goofy steel shack or something. So we added onto a wood shed that we got off of a lot that we went and basically moved from a property, and we added this straw bale. It's probably 16 by 16, I think it was, 13 by 13. And do we have another picture of it? Well, here's the next step.
Yeah,
Well,
it's coming
there's
up.
the shed there in the background, the gray T111 sided shed, and there's Walt Redfield there in the second row here, who's helped basically. He made it all happen. You know, we provided the site and did a lot of outreach, but Walt put a lot of labor in, and it came out really good. We did 5 or 6 workshops, I forget. It seemed like we did about 100, but where we had, you know, between 6 and 15 or 20 people show up on a Saturday and stack bales and put a roof on and mud the straw and mud the floor, all sorts of things. So it's insulated on the ground floor or on the ground itself with pea gravel and fiberglass 2-inch solid foam insulation, and then on top of that is a sand and clay mix. That
If you keep going, we'll see.
there's a good picture. Well, that's the bottom. The footings are actually, what were they, Walt?
Just row of ties with gravel in between, pea gravel, to get it up off the ground, and then the bales start right from there.
Yeah. So I was referring to the actual floor, because what that face that you're seeing there, well, let's see, do we have another one? That wall there, that's all the south-facing glass right there. So the idea is that we get solar heat just coming right through that, hitting this floor, which is like basically about 16 inches thick of pea gravel, and then mud and straw and sand, and then that is a huge, it just holds on to the heat. So and lets it go slowly through the night, you know, so you're not losing all this heat. You don't have some sort of big heater out there. We got this done somewhere in the middle of winter and just put this tiny little heater out there about the size of this laptop computer and turned it on low and kept that thing at like 65 degrees through all the -10 days that we had. I mean, it wasn't a very harsh winter. We all know that, but it did quite well.
Yeah. And just to finish up here, this is lime, well, it's missing a lime plaster coat actually, but the material there is called cob or adobe plaster. It's a natural material made from clay, sand, straw, and water, and it's really fun to work with, great alternative to concrete, much less toxic, less caustic, and you can sculpt it into these fun things. Our final workshop was a very creative process of sculpting all kinds of things here. There's a great sunflower here. Can't quite see it too well, and a gecko on the other side. So that was the end of those workshops, and then about the same time we had another volunteer day where a bunch of junior high school students came and helped us sort a bunch of shingles, and so that's what they're doing there, having lots of fun, as you can see. Volunteering at Home Resource, great fun. You can do it too. See us afterwards. Okay, the Willard School Project. Go, Lauren.
Well, let's see. On the left is Gwen Hoppy, I believe is how you say her last name. And she's a regular at the store. She also is a teacher, art teacher at Willard, and they had this project where they wanted to find a way to get their bikes in a covered dry area. So we undertook adding on this little shed. It sort of fit into this corner of like 2 sheds that were already existed. So over the course of a couple months, with between 3 and 6 students, and then Gwen and Whitney and another flagship gentleman by the name of Bo, we put this together, and now it's housing, you know, a dozen or so bikes. That is also another project that the flagship program is coordinating, where they put together bikes that the kids can use when they're doing like local field trips, or when they just need a bike or something like that.
And the students participated in building the shed.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's, coming up here,
There we
Lauren
are.
is wearing the bright orange hat there.
So we framed out walls and put them up and put a metal roof on it, sheeted it. Everything came from Home Resource except for the exterior plywood and those hinges. So, yeah.
Those beams inside, they look like they're kind of local,
Yeah,
homemade
yep. It's just, those are just
cans.
2x6s going across the top, but that whole front wall where the doors are 4x6 and a 6x6 header that runs the full length of that thing.
I'm looking at the beams there on that picture on the right.
Yeah.
Looks like there's some bark up on that.
They're
Oh, it's just real, pretty weathered, rough sawn 4x6s.
So back to the Jobs Through Recycling program, we are just at a point now where we're actually offering the shingles in the yard. I think we were even talking about bringing some over today. But it starts here. We have these barrels that can be brought to any job site, and we're recruiting contractors and builders to donate material of specific sizes here, 1x4, 1x6, 1x8, 2x4, 2x6, and 2x8, and even 4x material and 6x material we can mill into these shingles as well. And there is a mysterious model carpenter there demonstrating the proper technique for tossing into the barrel. We can move on. As much as we like looking at you, Laurie. Resawing these, it's just a bandsaw, and these guys have built a jig that very safely moves the material through. And as you can see, this was about a week or 2 weeks ago, and that's how much they had produced. And so we've got quite a bit more at this point, and we're about ready to start selling it. And there's the finished product. This has been stained a gray color. Sample board that Loken Builders, I should give credit to whom it's due. The basic technique for producing these things was developed by Steve Loken, local builder here. And he built this board. We've got one more closer up picture of it. And so it's beautiful looking stuff, and it looks great. Other possibilities that are going on right now, we have big bins for porcelain, glass, metals. Did I talk about this already?
Mm-mm.
Okay. For a small fee of just $5 per toilet, your cracked or unreusable toilet can actually be recycled and ground into
Road base or cement
same
bricks.
as glass, basically.
Yeah.
And we do the same thing with glass. It actually goes to Ozzy's Oil, and he's grinding up both the glass and the porcelain. Metals as well. A lot of times people were bringing us old aluminum doors that were just not really, not easily reusable, and they would sit around for too long. And so finally we decided that a good thing to do would be able to offer the service of smashing out the glass and just chucking the aluminum into the next bin. And so we do that for a small fee as well. And then we might ultimately have a bin for collecting drywall or other things, whatever might be needed. The future of Home Resource, what we really want to talk about. We need a new space. We currently have a 4,500 square foot warehouse, and it is bursting at the seams. Our goal is a 20,000 square foot space, and roughly the same size yard, although our yard is pretty big and I would say adequate at this point. But we definitely need more covered space, and we need more space for processing and resawing and doing some of these job training things on site. And we would like to be in a more visible location. So as we've been thinking about this, we've expanded it to include the possibility of a whole sustainability center where lots of people might be able to come and get a lot of their needs met at the same time. Let's go on. So I've talked to Free Cycles. Bob Giordano is he a member of the Sustainable Business Council? Okay. But they're a organization that collects old bicycles and fixes them up and puts them back to use. And they need a space. There's been a lot of people talking about the need for a tool library on the south side of town. Currently there's just one on the north side of town. Probably most of you are familiar with that. And it could use more space. So what other for-profit businesses or nonprofits would benefit by being located in a similar space? You would draw the same customers. Could be lots of benefits. By teaming up and working together, I think that there could be great potential for fundraising and putting our heads together, finding a space. I just think it could be a real benefit to the community. And we're just sort of seeing our need as a potential catalyst to make this thing happen. I know a lot of other people have been talking about that. That's my cell phone, please ignore it. I also think that a local currency would fit into this situation very well, because all of the businesses could. It'll go away in a second. There. It will really facilitate the exchange between the organizations and the people that are all looking for the same things in the same place. So let's go to the next slide. And I want to have a little brainstorming session. We could divide into maybe 2 or 3 small groups. And I'd like to just get your ideas and think about some of these things. What locations around town might be available? How much time do we have? This is going to be kind of a quick one. Maybe we'll spend about 10 minutes talking in small groups and then kind of report back in the last 5 minutes and just sort of see what was presented. I've got 3 things posted here, 3 blank pieces of paper.
Make notes on.
And someone can be a note taker designated for each group. Why don't we divide it right here and have 5, and maybe you 5 in the front 2 row here, and then you guys, maybe Ethan can be your leader.
We'll come back on air afterwards
taught.
to do the feedback, so you can cut us off for now.
Haven't completely failed the public education.
I'm not sure I would do those on the wall, just because they might be. Welcome back. We're going to turn you back over to Matt, and he'll conduct the report out here on what the groups came up with.
All right. Well, sounds like there's some great ideas. Why don't we start with Jack from this group that was up here, and just give us a quick rundown of some of the thoughts and ideas that you came up with, and the other groups can be maybe thinking about who can be their spokesperson.
I did, because I was the note taker, I guess. Well, we came up with on locations potentially, to mention the Kmart store out on Brooks Street at the intersection of Reserve Brooks and 93. And that has the added potential of the fact that Kmart may be closing more stores may mean that may be opening up. We don't know about that, but it's worth looking into, we thought. And the fact that the Kresge Foundation also does some capital campaign matching grants may also offer an opportunity in that. It could be potentially using both the store space and taking some of the parking lot as yard space, which I can say would be an added benefit, because right now half of our yard is dirt, and right now the forklift is sinking half the times we're trying to use it. So being on pavement would be a wonderful bonus. This also could potentially correspond with changes in the way that Kmart is operating, as well as the MRA, Missoula Redevelopment Agency's improvement districts may be migrating to that area. Another possibility that was thrown out is it would be potentially much more long-term would be the Champion Mill site. And another that was brought up was the currently where Norco and Roseburg Forest Products. There's some land adjacent to there that we thought could be looked into as potential. Who else may be at this sustainability center? We thought of glass recycling, particularly, but also in general more one-stop recycling. Trying to bring more organizations where it would be easier for people to know exactly where they can go and take care of it all at once. We also thought that it'd be great to have contractors and consultants located at this site. So coming to Home Resource, you pick up some materials, and oftentimes we don't have the expertise to tell somebody, you know, well, how exactly do I make this work? If there were some contractors, consultants also on site, then we could refer people directly to them. We also talked about leasable space for temporary or specific projects, like the example came up with somebody that was looking for a ceramic studio space and doesn't necessarily need it for 20 years, but it's something that maybe you could lease the space to do those kind of projects on that site. We also talked about potential for working with renewable energy organizations and or production, so talking with NCAT and Arrow about possibility of being involved in that process. In terms of funding, we talked about the potential for MRA funds, but that of course will be contingent upon being within their improvement district, as well as what their funding is going to be like over the long term. We also talked about the need to show that all these organizations would be working in collaboration, and that as a benefit to Missoula, that there wouldn't be overlap, and that by being close together would actually help that communication, so that it would help reduce the potential for overlap and for redundant services. We're running out of time on the funding, so we didn't get much more than that, but that's our presentation.
Walt, coming good? Thanks.
Let's see. Well, ours is very similar. I've been working for a while with various different builders and talking about a green builders co-op where we would get several builders together and share resources. So share a space, some larger equipment, and possibly even do alternative building products that are hard to get now. So we would have sort of a retail, and we thought that that would work hand in hand with what Matt and Lauren are doing, just another aspect to that whole thing. And then so the other possibility that fits in well with sustainability is to have remanufacture. So even somebody like the Opportunity Workshop, if they were willing to relocate, you could bring them into the same location, and so you'd have your recycling, your remanufacture, and then you open up office space to green architects, somebody like Solar Plexus, Sustainable Business Council could have an office there.
Yep.
And so it's a whole center that's all about sustainability, so then it becomes a draw for the whole community. And as far as locations, I think we'd want to get an industrial zoning, just so that we would have total flexibility, that if we decide to remanufacture, because in the process of all of this, we'd be looking at different materials. I mean, one of the things that comes to my mind is cotton. You know, the cotton bats are a great alternative to fiberglass, and it's something that possibly could be done in the future, is to have a in-town manufacturing facility to go along with all this other stuff. And I've been looking for a while for industrial sites, and my wife's a realtor, so we've kind of got a little handle on what's out there. And one of the things she tells me is that we have to have an idea of who's interested, what kind of financing you have, what you're paying currently. So I mean, we need to get a list of everybody who would be interested in this and get their financial information, and then we kind of have an idea of what potential they have, and then we need space requirements for everybody. And we could start the process rolling. So let's see, a few other things. Homeward would be a great, and then I've talked to Mark Vandermeer at Native Forest Network, and he's very interested in coming into a group situation like this.
But I know she had used appliances. I can't count how many times a day we have turned people away who are looking for homes for their used appliances.
Yeah.
Where do you send them?
There's 3 businesses in town, but the problem with them is that they all are so small that they have very limited space that they can take in. So what we end up doing is often encouraging people to use the independent and the Missoulian free ads to give it away. But that still has, if we had a place where we could refurbish used appliances and do that and have space for it, that would really make a tremendous difference.
The only ones you can remarket are the white ones and the almonds.
Yeah.
You can chain them.
Pink ones and stuff, take them to Pacific.
Spray paint.
Walter, I would suggest that trying to put this deal together as a co-op will be very difficult. Trying to bring multiple various organizations together to put together a financing package to purchase an existing space or buy a piece of raw land and build it would be a really difficult proposition. And that another route may be to put together a deal where you can approach an investor with this concept as a turnkey investment, where someone with some 1031 money or something like that, where you could show that the space is going to rent out at an 8% cap rate on an investment or something, have one single landlord with a big balance sheet put together the financing on the project, own it and hold it, and earn an 8 or 9% cap rate on that investment over 25 or 30 years based on the square footage, the price per square footage would make a lot more sense.
So I don't know if everybody got the reference to the cotton batting. What they're doing in some places is recycling old clothing, particularly denim, recycles very nicely into insulation. So that would be interesting. I mean, we obviously have enough cotton clothing around that we could have a remanufacturer for something like that. Last group?
Great.
Thank you, Walter.
Ours, it would probably sound like a rehash of all that pretty much. And we wrote less, but I blame that on the fact that I was standing next to the food and I was writing. Just pretty much emphasizing the location, we thought the central was good. You guys are great right now, but the open space that exists still in town is that area south of the Clark Fork. I don't know the names of the mills or whatnot, but the area south of the Clark Fork and between Higgins and Orange. And then also the area where Safeway and St. Pat's are not getting along. If that falls through, that could be a possible great central location. And we just talked about the mall sort of as a joke, but also that the area by Bob Ward's tends to be open, has good space, and that could be a great area, if nothing else, to do education for people that like to buy new things and teach them how to buy things that are reused. And then just with the other people, similar to what everybody else was talking about, something a little bit different that came up was that there are groups in Missoula that have some refugee people coming in from other countries and may have other ideas, sustainable uses of things that we just don't think about from here, so there could be possibilities there. And as far as alternative energy goes, I know that the College of Tech is trying to bolster their alternative energy program. They could be good partners, possible interns from there, things like that. But otherwise, I think it's kind of a recap of what everybody else had sort of going on.
Great. Well, thank you. There were lots of great ideas generated, and I really appreciate everyone. Thanks for coming and participating. Thanks a lot. Thank you, Susan.
I get just a last few minutes. I want to thank you all for coming here. I want to remind you that the SBC has a meeting in May, on May 19th. This topic then will be recycling in Missoula, and we'll have Tom Ertz from Missoula Valley Recycling. The location is yet to be determined because we're also going to have a Sustainability Awards presentation given, and so we want a little bit bigger space than this. And you can go out to our website, www.sustainablebusinesscouncil.org, to find out more about that event or the Sustainable Business Council. And also encourage you to go out to Matt's website, Home Resources at www.homeresource.org, and check out some of his projects and activities out there. Thank you all for coming tonight. That part's done.